Përshëndetje motra.
Mirë se keni ardhur në Trime podcast.
I'm Leonarda.
I'm Lejla. Welcome home. We've got a guest today in the studio with us, Nancy. Nancy is a member of our community. Nancy has joined us today to speak on her lived experiences, what it's like to navigate life as a blind Albanian woman, and just share some of the challenges that she has incredibly overcome. And I guess just really break down a lot of taboos and stereotype that a lot of people who are living with different abilities face in our community. So we are really privileged to have Nancy with us today. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nancy.
No, thank you guys for having me. I'm 24. I was born here in England. My parents came here not long before I was born. I always attended mainstream school, so that's just like school for people who don't have any disabilities or additional needs. I studied and then went to university in the Midlands in Coventry and did a law degree, and then I did my master's in Birmingham. And then I have since lived in Birmingham as that's where I found and gained all of my independence and the ability to travel all over the country on my own using the trains by myself. So I still come home to visit my parents really often. They live in Windsor.
So you mentioned that you've gained a lot of independence by being away at uni and living in Birmingham. Do you have any challenges that stick out specifically throughout your upbringing or your teenage years that you faced in particular with that intersectionality of being blind and as an Albanian woman? Any challenges that you face within the community?
Definitely. So I'd say the main one is, which I guess is something that I'm actually really grateful for, but in terms of independence, it ended up being a bit more difficult, and that's the fact that I had too much support, if anything. So I'm really lucky to have a really supportive family who have done everything for me, and that was kind of the way that it's always been with me growing up. And that's not just my parents and siblings, but that's cousins. You know, everyone has always wanted to be the first one to help me and to help me do everything. So when I got to the age of 18 and moved out for university, I had no independent skills, even things like cooking, washing my clothes, etc. So I really struggled, and my parents were coming like every other day to help me with stuff. It was a bit unfortunate that my university years were the years during lockdown, so I ended up going home like pretty early in my first year of university, and my mum kind of had that realization of she perhaps should have been more strict with me and treated me more like my sisters in terms of getting me to do things like washing clothes and cooking, so that I had those skills for when I moved out for university. She then kind of really made more of an effort to teach me how to do different things, and she wouldn't teach me, that would do to that kind of standard. She really taught me exactly the same how she would get my sisters to do stuff. And now, like I said, I cook everything myself and clean my house myself and wash my clothes myself and just have a typical independent life that, with things that most people take for granted, but to me, they're really important, because there was a point where I couldn't do them when perhaps, of a woman of my age and an Albanian woman as well, I should be able to do them.
Did that ever make you feel a sense of some kind of being self-conscious, knowing that our community puts these expectations on women, especially young women as well, to get married really young and to be able to cook and to clean and to have children? Did that ever make you self-conscious?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was mainly because I knew that I was capable of doing those things, and I had no doubt in myself that if only I just knew how to do it, I'd be able to do it. But the thing is, I had a lot of anxiety and different mental health problems throughout my teens, because I really struggled to come to terms with the fact that I was blind and the fact that I was different to everybody else. And like I said, as well, in the Albanian community, it's a bit taboo. I didn't know anyone else that was Albanian and had any form of disability, so I felt really alone, and like it was just me, and everybody else was sighted and able to do everything, and I was the only one that couldn't. And you always have you first of all have the pressure of doing it, but I also had dreams of wanting to get married and having children and being able to make a happy home for my children, and provide the things like food and a clean house for my husband when the time comes. But like, I was just so worried that no one's going to want to marry me because I'm not going to be able to make burek, or I'm not going to be able to make like this and that. I knew that I had the skills and I had the ability to do it. It was just the fact of, for example, I was so scared to put the oven on because I was scared that I would cause a fire because I wouldn't do it properly. And they're really irrational fears because it's so unlikely that that's going to happen. You have to kind of do something quite bad to cause something so dangerous. But with me always having been protected from all of that kind of stuff, I just imagined it to be a lot worse than it was. And now, like, I'll literally make cuisines and food from all kinds of different cultures, and I never follow a recipe. I always do my own thing, and everyone that eats my food loves it, and I really enjoy cooking. So it's quite like amazing how you can go from being so scared to like even turn on a kettle or an oven to being able and even finding it fun and seeking enjoyment out of doing that on your own.
Yeah, so I guess that the challenges and that sense of that loneliness, you took that and you helped it shape your identity and I guess who you are today, and clearly helped catapult a lot of the independence you have as well.
Yeah.
How has that experience with your site influenced your connection to the Albanian community?
I feel like there's two completely different sides to it. There's one side with certain people that I'm very accepted. All throughout growing up, I've been treated differently to some extent, but in others completely the same as everyone else. All the weddings, all the parties, I've always been invited. I've been taught how to Albanian dance. Like, I've really been taught how to culturally fit in with everything. Family have always treated me the same. They've never hidden me away or not invited me to anything. And even when we visit in the summer and we go to the beaches, all the activities, they've always made sure that I can participate in as well. So one year I did paragliding, and then I got invited to the opening ceremony of the World Paragliding Championships. So that was a really good experience. But when I've been to activities with some people, they're just like, oh, no, you can't do that. Like, you'll get hurt or you'll fall. Whereas I love adrenaline. I want to do anything. And if you tell me that I can't do something or I shouldn't do it, it makes me want to do it even more. And then, on the flip side, you get the people that stare, or the people that, and you don't need to see to know that somebody's staring at you. Or there's been times where I'm walking with my cane at the train station and I hear someone behind me being like, Shifa shifad goes nuk chef, pohet me shkop, blah, blah, blah. And I just turn around and look at them and just like stare at them. I don't say anything, but I'm just like, don't speak about people, because first of all, that could be you or someone any day. You never know. But also, I understand that's something that you might not have seen before, but I'm just somebody trying to get on with my life. And it does make you feel really exposed and really like you're doing something you shouldn't be because they're talking about you. But something that I've come to terms with, because people will stare and talk about you no matter what. Like, you don't need to be disabled. You could be wearing something that they don't wear, or anything. Your hair could be in a style that they don't like, or you could just be walking. Do you know what I mean? Like, they just...
We do know, actually.
Yeah, like...
Me and Leo know really well, actually. Yeah. Don't worry, we get judged for everything we do with this podcast. We know.
Just anything you do, like, you can get judged on. So it's something that I'm really learning, that it's more important to do what you're proud of, what makes you happy, and what resonates with you, rather than what is going to please somebody else, because you'll get nowhere with that and you'll just be suffering and miserable from pleasing other people. And to be honest, you should just be pleasing yourself, as long as what you're doing is for the right reasons.
Could you tell us a bit about the moments that you felt like you've really strongly had to advocate for yourself, for the accessibilities and different aids that you've needed in order to live an independent life?
Yeah, so, I mean, people think that the fact that, we're in England, we're so lucky because things to do with accessibility are so much better, and they are to an extent, but even here we have to fight for so many things, and so many things aren't right or how they should be, but particularly being from, you know, in part of the Albanian community, I think that it's so much more difficult, and you have to fight so much more. And it starts from like the little things. For example, if my we have aunties and uncles round like my house, which our house is like the safety house, like everybody comes, we always have people around, and it's always been like that growing up, and I love that. And again, that was something that I struggled with going to uni, because it was from having people there every day to being on my own. But you know, my uncle was around a few months ago with his wife and children, and I was sending a plate to the table, and my auntie wasn't there, but he got up and he was like, "Oh, I'll do it for you." And I was like, "No, I'll do it myself." And I put the plate down, and, you know, obviously it was fine. And then I went to the kitchen and I was like to my mum, like, "Oh my God, like, why are they like that? It's so annoying. Like, I'm capable of taking a plate." And my mum was like, "Yeah, Nancy, but we see you every day. We know how independent you are, and we know that you can do everything. They don't know that. And you know, what you did is you just showed him that it's fine and you can do that. And now he won't tell you again, because he knows that you're fine with it and you can do it." And it's little things like that, always trying to help you, to do stuff for you, to take things away from you. And then even to the bigger things, like, for example, I've just been matched with my first guide dog. And in Albania, we have a lot of perceptions about dogs being dirty and unclean and aggressive animals. And getting a lot of people in the community to understand that guide dogs are so different, and they're not a normal, like, typical pet that you would have in Albania, that you would keep outside and feed any of your normal human leftovers to. And the fact that they can be dangerous and attack you is really been a journey. Like, I was initially matched for my first time when I was 15, so nearly 10 years ago now. And they found a dog for me, and he was called Richard, and we were due to train in 2 weeks, but because they saw how uncomfortable my mum felt with dogs, because the dog was like literally shedding hair on the floor, and she just kind of shuddered a bit, and because they saw that, they were like, "Oh, we don't think it will be right for you to be matched at the moment, because in order for the dog to work properly and be happy and comfortable, it needs to be loved by the whole family." And I do feel that was an opportunity that was taken away from me by, you know, guide dogs unnecessarily at the time. But at the same time, you know, 3 months later, my neighbours got a dog, and my mum absolutely loved that dog, and she's seen a lot of guide dogs of my friends, and she absolutely loves them, and she's so comfortable with dogs. Like, she's equally as excited as me. But we still get questions like, "Oh, will they be allowed to come to the shop with you, or will you leave her at home when you go to work, or will you, when people come over, will they have to go, you know, in another room?" Lots of questions like that. There still is a bit of that stigma about dogs, and I know, you know, for example, when people come over, they're going to try and get me to put the dog in another room, but I'm going to refuse, because it's not
your essential aid.
Yeah. And they're so good, and I really believe that the more people see them, the people will understand how good they actually are and how much they actually listen. Like the other day, me and my friends, we went out for food, and we went to a halal Turkish like restaurant in Birmingham, and they refused, because one of my friends had his guide dog with him. They refused us to come in because of the dog.
It's literally illegal.
Yeah, and we literally had to have a massive standoff. We were all there like, "You'll get a letter from the Trading Standards Agency. It's illegal to refuse the dog. You could risk your restaurant getting shut down." They're very trained. We had her, like, they have like a book, an ID book, to show that they're definitely guide dogs. And she was wearing her harness as well, which is like the yellow kind of coat thing that signifies that they're a guide dog. And they were like, "No, the boss won't allow us to let you in." So we left, and about 5 minutes later, we were walking somewhere else, and one of the workers at the restaurant, she was literally running, and she came and she was like, "We're so sorry. Someone else our managers just told us about the rules, and we just weren't aware, and please come back." And they were really, really sorry, and they gave us a massive discount as well. And we were having a debate amongst ourselves about whether we should go back, and I was like, "Look, we cannot go because what they did was morally wrong and illegal, or we could go have the food because we wanted to have it, and also it would be a chance for us to demonstrate how good the dog actually is." And if somebody else comes, or if we want to go again, we will never face that discrimination again. And we went there, and she was obviously really good. She literally just laid under the table. She did absolutely nothing. We had our food and we left. And you could just tell how, you know, they knew that they'd done wrong, and they felt really bad because the dog was absolutely fine. And it's the same with things like taxis as well, like Ubers. They try and refuse the dog and say we need to get Uber Pet when you don't. That's not part of the rules. We can get just a standard Uber X. And then they try and say they're allergic to dogs. When we request for them to provide their exemption certificate, they say that they left it at home. So you're constantly having to fight. And whilst the dog is going to bring new challenges of having to fight for being to have to be allowed in certain places, it's going to be, you know, a pair of eyes for me that I'm always going to have beside me all the time. And everyone says to me that they just know that I'm going to be so much more confident when I get my dog. And I already know it in myself that sometimes if I just want to go to Tesco's, I'm like, to get a few bits, I'm like, I can't be bothered. I'll just order it for it to come in a few days, because going with my cane, it's just so long and slow and it's just so annoying. But I know that when I have my dog, the freedom it gives you, like the first time I had a walk with a guide dog, I literally started crying because I felt so free. And always having to hold on to someone and be guided by people, even using my cane, which is constantly like swishing and banging, and you feel like you're drawing so much extra attention. Whereas with the dog, you can walk so fast, and they're just so clever. Honestly, like the more people get to know about them, I think the better it will be, because the work they do is amazing. And in England, we are so lucky to have guide dogs, who's the charity that train the dogs and fund the dogs. And we're really blessed to have them, because I know obviously in Albania they're not a thing and they're not known about. And, you know, that's one of the quite a few things that we're so lucky that, you know, me being born here and a disabled woman here is much better than if I'd been born in Albania or another country that's not as developed.
So with how exhausting it must be to have to advocate and almost like a sense of activism every single day in every different situation for yourself, even like the example of saying the opportunity of having a guide dog at the age of 15 was taken away because they saw that your mum felt a little bit uncomfortable in that moment. Even then, not understanding that cross between, like, in our culture we don't actually, I know now it's changed a little bit and people do keep cats and dogs more as pets. I see that a lot on social media now. But we didn't before, and that's how a lot of us grew up. And they just not having that understanding that in our community we didn't keep pets like that. So yeah, it may have been uncomfortable for your mum in that moment, but she would have learned to be with the dog and navigate life around the dog. So that must have been really frustrating. So what are some of the misconceptions about blindness that you would like to change?
I think one of the main ones is that blind people are the same as everybody else. It's just, and they can do most of what anybody else that can see is able to do. It's just that it takes them a bit longer because there's some extra obstacles that they have to navigate. There's very few things that that we can't do in comparison to people that can see. For example, obviously driving is one of them, things that are actually dangerous. But in terms of intellectual ability and in terms of even physical ability to a very far extent, we're able to do the same stuff. Like I said, we're able to cook, we're able to clean, we're able to go to university, we're able to work very decent jobs. Like I said, I've just finished my master's in law and I'm looking for training contracts in the legal field. So hopefully, inshallah, I'll become, a solicitor one day. And yeah, it's just that we can literally do everything and we can lead a normal life. We can have children. We can look after children. We are just as enough. Like I feel like a lot of the time we're seen as less valued or worth less by people just because we can't see. And I don't think that's right. And that's probably the main one, because I think everything links into that one way or another. Yeah, I just think we are equal, just slightly different, and we can do the same as everybody else. Like I said, it's just a bit harder and a bit more complicated.
There's something that you shared with us earlier, that's worth a congratulations, that you started your own business.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
So yesterday I launched my new business called Serenity and Wellness, and it's all about improving your physical, emotional, mental well-being. So it's basically the primary aim of the business is to start off with is going to be to provide online life coaching, which is related to helping people achieve their goals in whatever area of their life it may be. I feel like with myself being blind, with also having gone through a lot of mental health struggles that again are not really spoken about in our culture, and also, you know, gaining a master's and a law degree and learning to gain my independence. I've been through a lot of things that have given me a lot of life experience and ways of finding solutions in dealing with and coping with a lot of different things. I've also, following from being in hospital for my mental health, gained a lot of weight. So I went through a very big weight loss journey and ended up losing around 30 kilos a couple of years ago. And also finding love for the gym and doing classes, which is something that if you'd have asked me 2 years ago, oh, do you want to come to the gym? I would have said you will never see me in a gym. And now...
Me. Literally me.
Honestly, like yesterday, you know, for example, my sister came to help me with the launch and she said, I'll drive you back home so you don't need to get the train tomorrow because I'm going anyway, so why don't you just come with me? And I said no. I said I'll get the train tomorrow because I want to go to the gym in the morning. So it's such a big like part of my mental health and my well-being. So yeah, it's going to be basically a lot of life coaching to help people achieve their goals and aid them in finding resources and different support and signposting them to different things. And then we're also going to have wellness retreats for women. So we're going to start off by doing them in the UK and hopefully, depending on how they go, expand them to abroad. And they're going to be like really kind of with different itineraries. So there's going to be different activities and things, you know, like dream board making or vision board making and things like paint and sip classes. I don't drink, but, you know, like mocktails, like mocktail making and different things like that. And I've also, I'm due to qualify in sports massage next month. So I'll also be doing massages for women, sports massage, deep tissue massage, holistic massage. And my dream is to make it a big thing and have other people and other businesses, other organizations join the business and have even offer things like counseling. And I'd love to open up like a wellness cafe, which is going to be like 24 hours, where anyone can come and have something, drink something to eat, just a really nice safe space to sit, because there've been times where I've really struggled with my mental health and keeping myself safe, and I've just wanted somewhere to go where I'm surrounded by people, but I don't have to speak to them or I don't have to engage with them. It's just that I know that there are people there and that I'm safe and I'm well. And with it, a lot of those emotions I would experience at night time where everything would be closed. So I find that I think that would be something that would be really amazing to achieve one day, inshallah. It's a long-term goal, but it's definitely a dream. And even I really feel that cafes, and especially 24-hour and late cafes, resonates a lot with the Albanian culture, and I feel that that's something that England really misses, because in Albania there's cafes literally everywhere. I saw somewhere it's actually the country with the most cafes.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
I actually fully believe that. I don't even need to see any research.
Yeah, no, exactly, definitely. But I really think that is something that in this country misses out on. Like there are a few, but I think there should definitely be more, because I think as well it's not just our culture that would benefit from it, and that it's a part of our culture. It's a part of so many different cultures. So I don't think it would. I think it would be like a really good idea. But yeah, that's the business, and I'll send in some pictures of the launch. But yeah, it was it was really good, and it turned out really well. And even though it's just the start, and even if it doesn't go anywhere, I'm really proud of how far, of actually getting just to this point and finally taking the step to actually launch it. And I planned most of the things myself and just had like a pair of eyes look over things, and double check that things were presented visually appealing or visually okay, like the business cards and the business hoodies, because my mum's always said this quote that really resonates with me, and it's, there's no point having eyes if you don't have the brain to go with them. Having eyes is all well and good, and they're so important because I can tell you myself, life without them is difficult. But there are people that they have sight and they just don't have a clue, and I'm just like, how can you not have such a clue? And and that's what that saying really comes into it. You've got to have both to do everything, but without the brain, it doesn't matter if in the ability to think and the ability to conceptualize and come up with things yourself. There's no point having eyes because it can only get you so far, if you know what I mean.
You mentioned that you'd been through quite a tough journey with your mental health. Would you say that's been a motivation behind you starting this idea for your business?
Yeah, 100%. I would say that's probably one of the main motivators. I spent my teens really struggling with quite severe things and things that are really kept under the rug with our culture, and I just really struggled. I just couldn't cope with the fact that I was different and I was blind, and I just had so much desire to be perfect and do so many things that I felt like me being blind was going to stop me from doing it. Like, I thought no one would want to get married to me. I thought I would never be good enough. I thought I could never get a job. And I found that really difficult. It's important to talk about because it's made you who you are and got you to where you want to be. But I think also people also always have that in their head about you as well. So I think it is a big part in making me who I am. And I still have bad days and I still have really bad episodes. I have long-lasting mental health conditions, but I also have good days, and I also have strong days and days where I feel like I have achieved some of the things that I want, and life never goes to plan. Even though you have certain plans for a certain age, you want to accomplish this and that, things will crop up in the way, or life events will happen and things will change, and it's just about learning to cope with that, and that life is literally just a journey.
You're truly inspiring, truly inspiring. We know that the Albanian culture and customs and traditions really hold back a lot of women, whether they see or don't see, or have disabilities or don't have disabilities. But what are some of the traditions or customs that you felt were actually inclusive to you, and others that actually made you feel like you were held back, and you did feel different within these traditions?
I'd probably say like the main one is things like cooking and cleaning and expecting to like look after everyone. And I absolutely love kids. I love children, but I've always felt as though you never got a chance, especially being in a very busy house with lots of people. Everyone was fighting over the baby anyway. It didn't matter. It was nothing to do with me being blind. But I just felt like because I was blind, I was last in the queue because I couldn't just go and grab the baby and just like hold him or her. And I've had certain family members more distant that weren't that were a bit like funny about me holding their baby, and like that really used to upset me because I actually grew up around kids. Like, my younger sister is 12 years younger than me, so I kind of not raised her, but I was there all her life from the day that she was born, holding her, feeding her, playing with her, taking her out. Like, from the age of 2 we would get the train together. Like, I knew that I was capable, and to have like this woman be like, she wouldn't say anything, but you could just tell, do you know what I mean? When like someone feels uncomfortable, like she'd always try and find an excuse, and it was only until she'd see me with other people's kids, and that it was absolutely fine. Like, I have a problem with my eyes, I don't have a problem with anything else. Like, I'm not going to drop your child, or do you know what I mean? Like, it's just about, I know it's your baby, and I'm sure if I had kids as well, I'd protect them with every inch of my being, and of course never want anything to hurt them. But it's also about being rational, that she's still a human with feelings, with hands that are capable. It's just her eyes that doesn't work. And I found that was one thing that I found really, really difficult. And, you know, that's just one person. It doesn't mean anything about anyone else. But it's just the fact that thinking you're not as capable. And the same with things like parties or get-togethers where everyone's helping out and doing things, and you want to also do that, but because it's not a familiar environment, things are in the way. It's not as the same. And for example, yesterday we had my launch event, and the first part was in my flat, which I absolutely loved because I felt so comfortable. I didn't need any aids getting around. I knew exactly where everything was, and I just felt absolutely so content and happy. And, you know, when we've been to things like birthdays or someone's house that we don't go to as often, and there's toys all over the floor or chairs in the middle of the room so that we can accommodate more people to sit, I have to constantly be guided everywhere, which is fine. But when it comes to things like needing the toilet, you feel like such a burden or a nuisance because you have to ask somebody to take you to the toilet, when you know that if this was my own place or somewhere that I go to regularly, which, you know, in the Albanian community we have like quite a few family and friends that we go to all the time, and in their house I'm completely fine. But when it's somewhere new, you just feel like you need to depend on other people much more. That was it. They're probably like the main ones, to be honest. With things like weddings, like I said, when we were kids, like we'd always have like dance practicing, and not just for me, like we'd all just be doing like vala in a circle, and like my cousins always taught me like exactly how to do it. And, you know, even now, like I'll get comments like at a wedding, they'll be like, oh my god, like you were so good, like how do you know? And I was just like, I just learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it just becomes like second nature to you, especially the volas.
Yeah.
Our blood, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
quite literally in our DNA.
Yeah, it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. If you just cut us, bleed us open,
Yeah.
it's just going to be vala.
Like music notes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's interesting because in the Albanian community, when we don't understand something, we turn to fear immediately.
Yeah.
We don't actually think logically. But you've defied all of these thoughts and expectations of what people have had of you and how they've treated you. You've become independent. You've gone to school. You live independently. Have you seen a shift within the Albanian community around you? Or on a shift of a difference in how they perceive a disability?
Slightly, only with me and with my disability, and only people that know me really well, which is one of the main reasons why I love what you guys are doing, because you're providing that platform for, you know, with me, for example, it's only the people that know me that are going to see the difference and the abilities of people that are blind. With you guys having different people and doing different things, like, I think it's going to be so amazing. I think it's going to be where things actually start to change. Like, for example, you know, the family that are here and friends that are here, they know I'm just as capable. And if someone else tries to overtake or do something, they'll say like, leave her, she can do it herself, or she knows how to do this, or oh yeah, like, you know, Nancy's done this, or blah blah blah. When we go back to Albania, like, for example, my granddad is old, so it's partly to do with that as well, but he cannot comprehend, no matter what, that I've got a degree. So when he speaks to us, he'll be like, how are you, blah 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 blah, and then he'll say to my sister, he'll ask my sister about uni, and I'll just be like ignored. And we laugh about it. Me and my sister are in hysterics about it, because we have like a running joke, like, oh yeah, you didn't finish uni, you just finished like primary school. And like, my sister is, she's like, oh yes, she's like, I'm the academic one. Like we just like do it like to wind each other up, and I'm like, oh, be quiet. Like
when you tell your siblings they're adopted.
yeah, literally like that. She's like, yes, she's like, I'm the studious one. You couldn't go to school, bless you. Like, and I'm just like, oh, like go away. And like, it's funny, and I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't bother me because, like I said, I know he's old, but when you look into it more deeper, it's so annoying because I'm just like, why can you not understand that I went to school and like, and I got a degree because I can, but when you think about it, they can't, because things are just so different there to how they are here. I think that's quite a main thing. But like I said, with family, they you know, even when I make something, you know, more extravagant, I'll send a picture in the family group chat, and my mum and dad always like show it to like family or friends, be like, oh, if they're with them at the time, they're like, oh my god, like look what Nancy's made, like hajda per dark, or like whatever. Like they'll always say stuff and show stuff to almost promote that I'm capable of doing anything. And I remember like when I first started getting the train, everyone was so shocked, and my mum used to follow me. Like she was so scared that something would happen, she'd secretly follow me. Like I'd have assistants, some like staff at the train helping me, but she'd literally follow, and then she'd just appear at the end destination, and I'd be like, Mum, like how did you get here? And I used to get so angry with her. I'd be like, why did you follow me? And she's like, I won't do it again. I was just so scared. I just wanted to see you do it one time, so I knew and I could be comfortable. And now if I try and ask her to come pick me up, she'll be like, get the train, because I know you can.
Yeah.
I mean,
you spoil her now.
Yeah, honestly, most of the time I'm not gonna lie, I'm really spoiled. Like they'll come and get me, but sometimes if they're at work or whatever, I will get the train because I can do it, so why not? It's just wanting to be a passenger princess, like please come get me.
So if you could give some advice to any Albanian woman that is living with a disability within the community, what piece of advice would you give them if they also don't know that someone else lives with the same disability and they feel all alone?
I'd first of all say that you're not alone, and there are many people like you. It's just that you haven't found them yet. I would also say that don't let anyone or anything stop you from doing anything that you want to do, even your whatever disability you may have. And I'd also say that you can achieve anything you want to achieve. It may take you longer, or it may be more hard, but there is a way around everything, and you can live just as a fulfilling life as anybody else, and achieve anything that you want to achieve. That's like the advice that I would probably say. But following on from that, I actually play a sport called goalball, and it's especially designed for people that are blind or visually impaired. I'll send you guys like a small clip of it, so you can see like a visual description of what it's like. But basically, at the weekend, we in England, one of the clubs, goalball clubs, hosted the first ever international tournament here. We usually go to Finland or Malmo, Sweden, different countries for tournaments, and I went to Australia in 2019.
Wow!
For the World Championships, and we got bronze, so that was really good. Wow. But it was the first time hosting a tournament in the UK, and I went there to watch, as we had a few friends competing and went to represent like Birmingham as well and our club. And I was on the bus, and we were on the bus with some of the other teams, and Brussels were on the bus, and I had one of the boys speaking Albanian, and I was like, oh my god. I was like to one of my friends that was next to me, I was like, oh my god, he's one of mine. He's from
my tribe.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god. And like he got off the phone, and I was like, and he was like, Paul, like he was so surprised to see me as well. And like we were talking, and his brother and another guy from Kosovo are all part of the team, of the Brussels team. And I was so like, oh my god, like wow, this is like amazing. And it, you know, I've always only ever, the one other time Kosovo entered a team into a tournament, and they were all boys. I'm literally the only girl that I've ever seen play sport that is Albanian and disabled, blind. But like it was so, I was like, wow, it was such like a oh my god moment because I hadn't seen it before, and I even said it to him. I was like, I haven't seen because he was telling me that his eye condition is genetic, and that's why him and his brother are both visually impaired and on the team. And I was like, wow, like I've never seen any Albanians that are registered blind with a genetic condition. And he was like, yeah, that's because they keep it under the table, so there are loads of them but you just don't know about them. And it just again reinforced the fact that there are so many people that are different and struggle with different things. It's just that they haven't been able to or felt safe enough or given the opportunity to kind of say or express themselves or make it known, which I just found that really, really interesting.
That's really
Just
so sad.
Yeah, because it's that sense of there's a community in and amongst a community that is being hidden away and not silenced, but just not spoken about.
Yeah.
Or just not given the space, that safety, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
to freely discuss their lived experience, to freely discuss what it's like to navigate life as being visually impaired. And I guess then this leads me on to my next question to ask you. The answer might be a bit obvious, but it might not. If you feel like there is enough representation of blind or visually impaired Albanian women.
No, not at all. I don't know any. I don't know any. Like, and I don't know any. I don't know how to say this without but like I don't know any traditional Albanian girls, which I feel like I am to an extent. And I also feel like I was born in the wrong generation to an extent, which is really weird because I want all these stigmas to be broken down, but at the same time I really have always wanted to please the Albanian culture and Albanian stereotypes. People also say, like, for example, like, I speak Albanian really well, which is quite uncommon for people that are born here. I'd say, like, I haven't really found people that are still have really strong ties to their Albanian culture and traditions, which I think that is so important because it's just nice, again, to not feel alone and like you're the only one and have people from the same background and similar interests and similar experiences, and you can always share advice or share tips. And you know, it's something so small, like this girl, I don't even watch her on TikTok, but one of her videos came up on my For You page, and she was like, whenever I go to a hotel, so that I can find my hotel room, I tie a hairband to the door. And I was like, oh my god, that is such a good tip. So last weekend I tied it to the door and I could always find my room. Usually I'll count how many doors I go down the corridor, or if I've got one at the end, I'll remember that it's at the end of the room. But it was such a simple thing that if that TikTok video hadn't have come up on my For You page, I would have never found out about it. And same thing, if that first live that I came across you guys' like TikTok page hadn't have I just randomly like came on it and I was like, oh my god, like what is this? And I was just watching it and I was like, wow, like this is amazing. And that's kind of, you know, how it all started, if you know what I mean, like with me coming here. But it's just, I think, about getting things out there and getting things out there to the right people and just raising that awareness.
You think it would have an impact, the right impact, if there was more representation?
I think so, definitely. I'm not saying there wouldn't be some backlash or some haters, because like we said earlier, they're going to be there no matter what we do. But even if it's just a small, even if it can change one person's life and make one person feel not alone, it would be worth it. But I think it would happen with more than one person, which makes it even more worth it, if you know what I mean.
How does the intersection of your gender and disability shape your perspective on advocacy?
It shouldn't be, but I honestly think it's so much harder being a woman. And that's something that I found really difficult. For example, last year I started my own TikTok page, just doing things like day in the life, spend the day with me, spend the morning with me, blah blah, just to show me going about my day-to-day life as a woman who is like blind. And I just started to build a following, a very small following, and I deleted all my videos, which some people are still quite angry with me about this. But I just get a really big sense of, I think, panic and fear. One, I'm being judged. Two, that I'm a woman and I'm really putting myself out there. And again, Albanian people are going to be like, she shouldn't be doing that. She's a woman. I also feel things, so people are just constantly pickpointing anything, your hair, your nails, what you're wearing, what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And that's something that I really struggle with. And if I have a down day, I just delete anything. And that's another reason why I made myself take this big step, because now that I've launched it and registered it, Serenity and Wellness, as a business, you're building a brand, and you can't be, it's not like a small thing where you can just delete stuff if you're having a bad day. And that's why I want to make sure that I'm always happy with my content. So if something does make me doubt myself, I know that on another day, on a previous day, I was happy with that content. I've also made myself a promise that I'm not going to delete stuff. But I do think it's so much harder being a woman, because it's wrong, but you are seen as by society more vulnerable, that you should be more hidden, that you should be more toned down and less brave. But we should be brave, because we are the ones that can make change. We're the ones that are actually going to do it. And I'm not saying men don't have their own struggles, because they do, but it's very different to our struggles. And we owe it to ourselves and to other women to be that platform, be that voice, and be those advocates, and make those good positive changes to make life better for ourselves and other women as well.
I hope this episode really just breaks that whole perception of disabilities and really changes a lot of perceptions of what disabilities are or is in the community, and actually starts a whole conversation and reaches the right people.
Yeah. So moved by your vulnerability and by your rawness that I feel super privileged.
Same.
That you're here today with us. Like, genuinely, thank you for trusting us.
Yes.
And for just trusting us to sit. We're just two girls.
Yeah.
Like, we're literally just two girls.
Yeah,
And
no,
the fact
really.
that knowing how hard it is, just being a woman in our community to come forward, but also obviously being a woman in our community living with a disability to come forward and share and be this raw about your lived experience is like so beautiful. So I just thank you.
No, honestly, thank you guys so much for having me. I honestly really appreciate it for giving me the platform and the opportunity to talk about all of that.